It began with a number so large it felt unreal. $2.1 billion, a figure that floated in the headlines on a quiet Thursday in June 2020, instantly vaporizing the reputation of a corporate giant. This wasn't just any company, it was Wirecard AG, the jewel of Germany's burgeoning tech scene, a payment processor that promised to revolutionize how we handle money. The news hit the financial world like a physical shockwave, a sudden gut-wrenching confirmation of a suspicion that had festered for years. The money, which was supposed to be sitting securely in trust accounts in the Philippines, simply wasn't there. It had never been there. The announcement was a confession disguised as a discovery, a stark admission of a hole in the balance sheet so vast it defied comprehension. The shock was palpable across trading floors from Frankfurt to New York. Wirecard's shares, once the pride of the DAX 30 index, investors who had poured their savings and their faith into this German success story watched in horror as billions in market capitalization evaporated into thin air. The story dominated every news cycle with bold, incredulous headlines flashing across screens. Wirecard's missing $2.1 billion. Long before the scandal broke, Wirecard was the protagonist of a much different story. A tale of ambition, innovation, and national pride. Founded in 1999 in the quiet suburbs of Munich, it began as a small, unassuming payment processor, navigating the turbulent waters of the dot-com bubble. Its early focus was on handling payments for the murkier corners of the internet, gambling websites, adult entertainment websites. This was a high-risk, high-reward business, but it gave Wirecard a foothold in the nascent world of online transactions. Under the leadership of Markus Braun, a charismatic Austrian with a vision for the future of digital payments, the company began its slow but steady ascent from the fringes to the mainstream of finance. Braun transformed Wirecard from a niche player into a fintech powerhouse. He was a master storyteller, weaving a compelling narrative of technological disruption and boundless growth. He painted a picture of Wirecard as a global leader, a company that was not just processing payments but building the very infrastructure of the new digital economy. The company expanded aggressively, acquiring smaller firms across the globe, announcing partnerships that seemed to position it at the center of a vast, interconnected financial network. By the mid-2010s, Wirecard was no longer just a payments company, it was a symbol of German innovation, a homegrown tech titan ready to take on the giants of Silicon Valley. This narrative was incredibly seductive, especially in Germany, a country known for its manufacturing prowess, but lagging in the digital race. Wirecard became a source of immense national pride. In 2018, it achieved the ultimate symbol of corporate legitimacy. It replaced the venerable Commerzbank in the prestigious DAX 30 index, Germany's equivalent of the Dow Jones. This moment was hailed as a changing of the guard, the old world of traditional banking making way for the dynamic, forward-thinking world of fintech. Wirecard was celebrated by politicians, its executives were lauded as visionaries, and its soaring stock price made it a darling of retail investors and institutional investors alike, who saw it as a sure bet on the future. Behind the public celebration, however, the company's rapid growth was built on an increasingly complex and opaque business model. Much of its purported success came from operations in Asia, managed through a web of third-party acquirers and subsidiaries that were difficult to scrutinize. The official story was one of explosive expansion into new markets, but the reality was far more convoluted. This complexity, combined with a relentless focus on hitting ambitious growth targets, created an environment where questions were dismissed as attempts to undermine a national champion. The myth of Wirecard, the German tech hero, was so powerful that it blinded many to the troubling signs that were already beginning to surface. The engine of Wirecard's spectacular growth was not genuine business innovation but a sophisticated and deeply embedded system of fraud. The core of the deception lay in fabricating revenue streams to meet and exceed the lofty expectations of the market. It was a house of cards, meticulously constructed to look like a fortress. The scheme primarily involved a network of so-called third-party acquirers, or TPAs, business partners located mainly in Asia, Philippines, Singapore, Dubai. Wirecard claimed these TPAs processed payments on its behalf in markets where it did not have its own licenses. In reality, a significant portion of this TPA business was a complete fiction. The process was deceptively simple in its concept, yet labyrinthine in its execution. Wirecard would essentially invent transactions and funnel them through its books as legitimate revenue generated by its Asian partners. To make these phantom revenues appear real, the company created a circular flow of money and documents, forged contracts, fake invoices, counterfeit client lists, to provide a paper trail for auditors and investors. This fabricated business appeared to be wildly profitable, contributing a huge chunk of Wirecard's reported earnings and cash flow. The company was, in essence, reporting money it never actually made, creating a growth story out of thin air to keep its stock price soaring and its access to capital markets open. This elaborate deception was allegedly orchestrated from the very top. Executives at Wirecard's headquarters in Germany, along with key figures in its Dubai office and Dublin office, were central to the operation. They managed the creation of this parallel fraudulent business, ensuring that the fake numbers integrated seamlessly with the company's legitimate operations. The scheme required a high degree of coordination and secrecy. A small, trusted inner circle was responsible for manufacturing the data that would fool auditors, regulators, global investment community. They were not just cooking the books, they were writing an entirely new cookbook based on imaginary ingredients. The scale of this fabrication was staggering. The TPA business was presented as the fastest-growing and most profitable segment of Wirecard's empire. It was the secret sauce that justified the company's sky-high valuation and its inclusion in the DAX 30. By attributing a large portion of its profits to these opaque overseas partners, Wirecard could deflect detailed scrutiny. Whenever questions arose about the specifics of these operations, the company would cite client confidentiality or the complexity of international payment processing. This strategy created a smokescreen, allowing the fraud to continue unchecked, while Wirecard bathed in the glow of its seemingly miraculous success, a success built entirely on a foundation of lies. The final unraveling of Wirecard was driven by relentless investigative journalism, a battle waged by a handful of reporters against a corporate machine determined to protect its secrets. At the forefront of this fight was the Financial Times. Starting in 2019, a series of articles penned by my colleagues and me, under the banner "The House of Wirecard," began to expose the fraud in granular detail. Our investigation was fueled by brave whistleblowers from within the company. They provided us with internal documents, emails, and spreadsheets that laid bare the mechanics of the deception taking place in Wirecard's Asian operations. Our first major story in January 2019, headlined, "Executive at Wirecard Suspected of Using Forged Contracts," detailed a conspiracy centered in the company's Singapore office. We reported on how senior executives were allegedly creating fake invoices and round-tripping funds to fraudulently boost revenue. Wirecard's reaction was immediate and ferocious. The company denied everything, and its lawyers launched a campaign to discredit our reporting. Once again, the German regulator BaFin intervened on Wirecard's behalf, announcing a ban on short-selling its stock and launching a criminal investigation into the Financial Times for alleged market manipulation. We were fighting a war on two fronts, uncovering the fraud while defending ourselves against a powerful corporation and its state-backed protectors. Despite the immense pressure, we continued to publish. Our investigations moved from Singapore to Dubai and Dublin, following the trail of fake profits and phantom cash. Each story added another piece to the puzzle, revealing the global scale of the conspiracy. We detailed how a significant portion of Wirecard's business was a sham, supposedly conducted through partners like Al Alam Solutions in Dubai. The whistleblowers were our lifeline, providing the hard evidence needed to substantiate our claims. They described a culture of fear and deception, where employees were instructed to mislead auditors and create a paper trail for business that never existed. It was a slow, painstaking process of connecting the dots across continents. The culmination of our work forced Wirecard to take action. Under pressure from investors, the company finally agreed to an independent special audit by KPMG in late 2019. This was the beginning of the end. While Wirecard hoped the audit would exonerate them, it did the opposite. KPMG's investigators were unable to verify the existence of the company's third-party profits, and crucially, could not confirm the cash balances held in trust accounts. Their report, published in April 2020, was a bombshell. It stated plainly that they could not verify the vast sums of money that formed the bedrock of Wirecard's profits. The machine was breaking down, and the truth was finally coming into the light. The publication of the KPMG report was the moment the dam began to crack, but the final catastrophic break came 2 months later. On June 18, 2020, Wirecard was due to release its audited 2019 results. The release was delayed multiple times. Then the auditor, EY, refused to sign off, a gaping hole of €1.90 billion, about $2.1 billion, that was supposed to be in Philippine trust accounts could not be found. Wirecard's statement called it indications of spurious balance confirmations. In reality, the money was never there. The market reaction was swift and brutal. The share price plunged, collapsing over 98% in days. A company once worth over €24 billion saw its value evaporate. Countless investors were wiped out. Shockwaves rippled through the German establishment. The pride of the DAX 30 was exposed as a hollow shell. Trading descended into panic as investors scrambled to exit. The fintech darling became a financial pariah. Its name became synonymous with one of the biggest corporate frauds in modern history. 4 days after the missing billions were revealed, CEO Markus Braun resigned. The next day he turned himself in Munich. He was arrested on suspicion of false accounting and market manipulation. His tech visionary image shattered, replaced by a perp walk. The company, leaderless and indebted, admitted the €1.9 billion likely did not exist. The house of cards collapsed. A week after the scandal broke, on June 25, Wirecard filed for insolvency. It became the first ever DAX 30 member to go bankrupt. The implosion was complete. Offices were raided by police, executives were taken into custody, global operations were dismantled. The speed of the collapse was breathtaking. The German tech hope was dead, leaving a trail of financial devastation and a crisis of confidence. The collapse of Wirecard left deep and lasting scars on the European financial landscape. It was a moment of profound embarrassment for Germany, shattering its reputation for corporate diligence and regulatory rigor. The scandal exposed a catastrophic failure at every level of oversight. BaFin was accused of being toothless and even protective of Wirecard, choosing to investigate journalists rather than the company they were exposing. The country's accounting watchdog, the auditors at EY, were heavily criticized for failing to uncover the fraud. The fallout triggered a political firestorm, leading to a parliamentary inquiry and a complete overhaul of financial regulation in Germany. New laws gave BaFin more power to intervene, including the ability to order forensic audits. Rules on auditor rotation were tightened, and the corporate-auditor relationship came under severe scrutiny. It was a brutal wake-up call for Europe, exposing dangers of national champion thinking where pride shields companies from criticism. The primary lesson: trust must be verified. No company should be above suspicion. For investors, do rigorous due diligence, be wary of opaque, complex business models, don't be dazzled by rapid growth. Watch for red flags: aggressive accounting, convoluted corporate structures, management hostile to questioning. Independent, critical journalism proved essential in exposing abuse. Years later, Markus Braun's trial continues the hunt for Jan Marsalek. Persists, investors still try to recover losses. Wirecard is now taught in business schools. It's a cautionary tale on trading floors, and it forces hard questions about trust in finance. Delve deeper into these scandals. Understanding them is the first step toward a more transparent financial future. The vanishing billions are a permanent warning when ambition, greed, and deceit go unchecked. Subscribe to Fraudline for more financial scandals.